Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, Angelo. I really appreciate you having this chat with me.
My
I've
pleasure.
really, I've really enjoyed everything you've put out on YouTube, and I think you are one of the most direct and just potent explorers of experience. And I really enjoy your teachings and your message. It's very well rounded. It's got a great spectrum to it. The shadow stuff, the emotional stuff, the direct experience stuff, the self inquiry. I think it's great. Just wanted to say. Um, so it's a pleasure to have you on. Um, so yeah, as you and I have discussed off air, um, this is going to be quite a unique episode, I think. I'm when we planned this episode, every my life was totally normal, as far as normal can be said, at least, and everything was just kind of standard. And now I find myself in the middle of a very heartbreaking, very challenging situation at the end of my marriage. To put Not to put too fine a point on it, and I thought maybe we could use me as a guinea pig of sorts to kind of just see what this is like. What the process is for this kind of situation, because it's not obviously heartbreak. It's quite a broad term, but essentially it's pain. It's going into the shadow. It's going into deep hurt and pain, and existential stuff and everything. It's like all in this cloud of like shadowy, deep, rich, normie suffering. So I thought we could maybe just go through the processes to anyone who's listening, and to help me, of course, as well. Um, how one would go about navigating this, from the context of the way you and I usually discuss non-duality and spirituality. Um, does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds great. We were talking just before we started recording here about the approach of being very direct and empirical about what you're experiencing in real time. And at some point with more um with deeper clarity, you start to almost deconstruct everything. And you know, s- objects and space and time and physicality become deconstructed, at least episodically, at least as you do these types of deep inquiries or very direct, potent inquiries into the nature of the sense fields, so to speak, or maybe into consciousness and so forth. So um, that's powerful work. It's very powerful work. But there are two things that I want to say about that. One is if you think that's the only work that you have to do with this whole process, you're fooling yourself. Uh, that's number one. Number two is that um, you will you can at some point get get to the point where you can almost zoom in too far, um, experientially to the sort of deconstructed experience, and it's not necessarily spiritual bypassing, but it's just a bit of a miscalibration sometimes. If regular life, like conventional life, is falling apart, or there are major changes, or there's something that really just needs to be addressed to take responsibility for what you're doing as a human in this relative life. Sometimes that just really needs to be addressed. And what we want to do is we want to zoom past it. We want to zoom so close into our experience or meditate ourselves into oblivion that we're really overlooking something. And like I said, I don't wouldn't really call that spiritual bypassing necessarily, because our heart is in the right place. Our instinct to orient to truth is in the right place. But things just get very subtle, and it can be tricky to even know where to look sometimes. Like, where do I need to look in the emotion body? Is this a belief? Do I need to just meditate more? Do I need to continue to like zoom in deeper into my experience? And so it can be challenging to know how to calibrate when things just starting to get more and more formless. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and life shows us usually. This is kind of the entry point into what we're going to talk about is life shows us where we need to look. And the last thing I want to say about this as just a sort of primer to anyone listening is the more directly you engage non-duality, let's just say non-duality, the more direct the insights are and the more powerful the insights are, which sounds great ahead of time. Like, oh, I want those. crazy, mind-blowing, deconstructing experiences. I want the mystical experiences, but it's kind of like, just be careful what you ask for. It's kind of
Mm.
like psychedelics. Like, for instance, if you really hit it hard with psychedelics or entheogens, you dig up a lot of shadow material, and you may be very, very surprised what comes. It's the same thing with this, very, very direct approaches. They are powerful and they're tremendously transformative, but just know you're really digging up deep stuff, stuff that you didn't know was there. You're going to be, everyone along this path will be surprised what they come into contact with in themselves. And it can be daunting. So I just want to say that if we stay in this space, even online, of just always talking about non-duality as a direct insight without talking about the sort of human element, we can be doing people a disservice, because this can be very challenging stuff to move through, as you know. So
I've always stood by exploring direct experiences the most potent way of exploring anything that you come into contact with in this life. It's whatever comes up, emotions and everything, just exploring what is that made of, what is its texture, like what is it exactly? Yet, like you say, you can zoom in too much. I'm experiencing this firsthand now. So everything you're saying is like, it's not an idea. Like, I can imagine someone zooming in too much. It's like I have been doing that and using meditation as a crutch of sorts and going deep into meditation, because I'm quite good at going into deep states, escaping into ecstasy, and everything there. Everything seems pretty good. Um, so it can be, I feel like it's a delicate process. It's a
yeah,
very subtle and delicate process, and it requires a lot of self-compassion and willingness to face the human, like you said. And that doesn't negate from non-duality. Facing the human is part of non-duality. We're having a human experience. The human is included in the non-dual experience. And so if I sometimes the most appropriate thing is to just have some therapy, or just direct some love towards a certain aspect of myself. Like, that feels, we're talking like, this is the deep pain, suffering, shadowy stuff. This isn't like your typical everyday non-duality exploration. This is like really, really deep stuff, and it requires a lot of sensitivity and compassion. I'm learning as I go through it. The
yeah,
the direct and sort of, almost, the direct non-dual exploration of experience can sometimes be a little bit heavy-handed in some ways. It's almost like a bit full on, a bit on the nose. So yeah, I'm slowly learning these things as going through it firsthand, and it's, from one
yeah,
perspective, very interesting. Another
yeah,
perspective, very painful. Uh,
yeah. There are there are clues in some of the old liturgy, and some, there's old Zen masters that talked about things that really do point back to this. But it's, again, it's so subtle, and knowing when and how to work through this integration stuff. Um, for one thing, there are a lot of people, I think, that really, mm, I don't know, have that depth of realization necessarily. There are some for sure, but there's a much earlier phase of things where you could talk like we're talking, but it's not quite the same thing. Uh, what we're talking about, in my estimation, is where the disintegrative meets the integrative, and when disintegration and integration find this sort of natural balance, it actually brings things deeper. So I could say what we're talking about is masculine and feminine. The masculine mind, or the masculine tendency or aspect, wants to just disintegrate completely. It wants absolute directness, absolute precision. That the stuff we're talking about, right? Initially, but it's still skewed. There's a skew there, and because it's an extreme. So in Buddhism, there'd be the description of freedom from extremes. Freedom from extremes means absolute fluidity and absolute flexibility. It can inhabit the masculine and feminine very effortlessly, and it can move between the two, and it can move with both of them at the same time. And that's deep freedom. That's deep freedom and peace and flexibility and spontaneity and radical intimacy, and also emptiness, shunyata. So yeah, there's something that once of and it may not. It's not just masculine, like because we're male or something. the movement of thought is a sort of disintegrative movement. It's a disassociative movement. We step back from experience and then turn it into an object and turn ourselves into a subject. But none of that actually exists. But when we deconstruct that and see that it doesn't exist, the tendency to still step back from experience, from life, is still there. And that comes with it distortions in both the masculine and feminine spectrum. And there can be control, there can be escape, but both of those are distortions. Ultimately, you'll find this balance, and life will just show you. It will literally say, "Here, let me mess this up in your life," and now it's just in your face. You have to go in. So the first movement is really out, and then the second movement's back in. But the in and out, then at some point, are really intertwined and interpenetrated.
Yeah. Some that you were saying about a life will just show you these things, and this is, you know, this has never been so clear. It's just I would never have asked for this situation, but it's so um it's revealed parts of myself or things that have remained unconscious, you could say, and I haven't been aware of, have been blind spots in myself, but I didn't even know were there whatsoever. It's just makes me think of the intelligence of this unfoldment process, that it is perfectly unfolding and it will reveal its, I had this idea of shadow work where you would have to dig down and try and find the shadowy stuff and bring it up, and um, life will do that for you, I feel.
I've said this before. It's like there's the shadow, and then there's like the deep shadow. And the
Yeah.
shadow is when you still feel like you're in control a little bit. You're doing the work, you're digging in, you're kind of without realizing you're managing it, you're deciding what you're going to come in contact with and not. This is not like that at all. This is like the wheels come off and you are not in the driver's seat at all. And you're experiencing things you never thought you could experience or wanted to experience or would experience. And you feel quite helpless, actually. You feel quite helpless. Yeah. Because if you're
Yeah.
not if there's not a these are the implications of non-duality that we don't always think about, right? If there's no doer, if there's no agent, if there's no separation, there's no control. There's no agency at all. There's helplessness. Like all of nature is helpless and in a way, because there's nothing apart from anything that can decide how things are going to go for it. And when you
Mm,
feel that viscerally and you see it playing out in your life, it can be kind of terrifying at first. You will get used to it and it'll all integrate, but you won't be the one doing the integration. You're along for the ride.
yeah, yeah. So, from your perspective of things, you know, um, how does if say I was a client, I came to you and very specific issue, I'm going through this issue. What would you say to someone? Would you, you know, I guess we could treat this as that kind of situation. What kind of questions do you ask them? What do you get to sort of look at,
Sure.
to look at within themselves? And
Well, first of all, it's always different. So I don't have a map for this.
of
And
course, yeah,
so it's always different. It's literally like how you're moving, the words you're saying, how the conversation is playing out. And I just respond spontaneously. So it really just depends on the situation. In this case, like I do have to address the fact that we're talking publicly. So there's gonna be things we're not gonna talk about another person that it wouldn't be fair to that person and so forth. But we
sure.
can keep it in the context of you, of course. And you know, I would just ask you what stands out to you as the biggest problem or challenge of this whole situation? You've mentioned your heart is being broken. Um, what is it about that? If you could just put it into a statement that explains what part of that you're not okay with. This may sound so obvious that we don't even think about it, but what is it about this whole situation that you're just not okay with? And this can be a selfish statement. It doesn't have to be from any particular standpoint, just whatever feels like your instinct to answer.
Okay. Um, so I'm not going to be too non-dual about this. I'm just going to say what's actually coming up. It's there's feelings of unsafety,
Mm.
insecurity, a kind of existential terror that reminds me of being a child. That's um, like lost or something. dreams I used to have as a child where find myself out in the wilderness, just spontaneously in the middle of the night.
Mm.
Um, it feels like, yeah, it feels like that even though I'm in my parents' house and I have a home currently, it feels like I have no home. It feels like I'm
Yeah.
untethered. Um, it feels like I don't know who I am. Like, not just in the non-dual sense, just like every sense, like, what the fuck,
Mm.
Um, yeah, feels like I've lost a limb. Yeah, there's a lot, and there's things around dancing around, uh, like feelings of insecurity and jealousy and those kinds of
Mhm.
things are popping up as well. All of which
So,
is, sorry, carry on.
well, you said a lot, and I think we can touch into those various aspects. But
Mm,
the other thing I wanted to ask you is, can you identify like some basic emotions as well around this, like just
sure.
simple emotions?
Um, fear,
Hmm.
anxiety, uh, a sense. It's not an emotion, but a sense of death.
Yeah.
It's like feels like dying every time I'm remembering what's happened.
How about
Uh,
sadness?
Sadness, without a doubt, definitely sadness.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, just name a few.
Yeah. So the reason I asked about the emotions, um, is I find that often different people are comfortable and less comfortable with different emotions, and it varies. Some people are comfortable with anger, but they're not comfortable with sadness, for instance, and some people are quite vice versa. So often, when all this stuff is unfolding inside you and outside of you, we often sort of dodge around one emotion, and that's why I was kind of like probing a little bit for the sadness, because if you kind of look at an experience like this, for most people, the prominent emotion would be sadness. Grief. You're losing a loved one, essentially, in one way or
Yes,
another. It
yes, yeah.
feels like that. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. So there are different ways to approach this at different times for you, and just trust your intuition on how to move through it and move with it. But with the emotion specifically, I would just give each of those emotions time, really, and just sit with it. Often they'll just come knocking on your door and just say, "Knock, knock, knock. Here I am. Here's fear." But I really do think that the sort of parenting yourself can be really helpful, and treat that emotion like each individual emotion. Treat each one in a sort of granular way as an entity, as a life form, as a life force, because it is. There was a part of you that experienced that fully as a child, that became fear as a child at times, you became sadness but we forget these things. And so when those energies are there, what happens is we learn to bury them. Actually, we learn to, through coping mechanisms and identity structures built on top of each other, we learn to just bury that stuff. But they come back at these times, and part of us doesn't want that to happen, and we feel disassociated or disoriented because of it. But it really is an opportunity. So when sadness comes, you just hold it. Just go, you have all of my attention right now. Sadness, you have all of my attention right now. And just feel it as closely as you can. Just feel it in your body. Feel it everywhere that it naturally, manifests in your physical body, in your experience, the sensation field. And just hold it. Just be with it. Just allow that to be here. Sadness, grief. When it's fear, the same thing. Fear is more of a hot emotion, right? It's more intense. It's more, it feels like you have to do something about it right now. Like, it's a fight or flight experience sometimes.
Yeah.
And that same thing though, you can learn to hold that as well. With fear, it's really helpful to remind yourself, oh, sorry, did I lose? Oh, I'm
Oh, you're
back and
upside
I'm
down.
upside down.
Wow.
I'm
You
sorry, man.
you really have transcended reality.
I
Yeah.
transcended reality right there. Okay, here we
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Don't know what happened there. So, yeah, with fear, I think it can be really helpful to remind yourself of the difference between the thoughts and the sensations and the experience of it.
Yeah.
Calling it fear and labeling it fear as an emotion is very helpful. And holding it in the way I was talking about and just giving it space. Just go, fear can be here right now. Like I have the capacity to experience it. You do have the capacity to experience it. But just notice the subtle thoughts that sneak in around fear can be really destabilizing. Like, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. This is going to destroy me. just notice those are thoughts. This is really helpful in these cases, because then you can actually sit with fear. And fear is, like I said, it's intense, but it also tends to be tends to come and go pretty quickly. Like it'll just be there really intensely, and then a few minutes later it's kind of gone. And it may come back. But when it's here, just hold it. Just be okay with it, and just say, "Hey, you can be here. You know, as a entity, as a single experience, as you in that moment, not clouding it with all this other stuff like non-duality type stuff or insights or trying to figure out what to do about it. The storylines, just stay with just that." And I think really approaching emotions in this way, especially when there's a lot of emotion and they're very intertwined, and then there's also resistance, which we'll talk about around all of it, it can be really helpful to just break it down into these different emotional experiences, because they are kind of like life forms and life forces. I mean, they are how we move through life. Like a lot of the most of the decisions we make and so forth, the big decisions and the relationships we form and all really have to do with emotion more than logic, really, right? And
Yeah.
so it's important to acknowledge this part of ourself, part of our life, part of who we are. Um, when you can go deeper in, some people find it very helpful to move, physical movement around emotion. So when you really start embodying sadness or grief, let your body move the way that feels. If it helps, you may be on the floor in the fetal position, or you may be, doing slow dance, or maybe
Mm.
shaking like TRE. But somatic expression of these feelings can be really, really helpful. It just gives them life. And a lot of times what feels so urgent or confusing or disorienting, or worst is complete disassociation, is really from a lot of confusion around emotion and fear of emotions in general and avoidance of emotions. That's what leads to states that feel much more like suffering than intense emotion. There's intense emotion and there's suffering, and they're not the same thing. So that's how I would move with the emotion spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's really fascinating with this, and it is interesting having a podcast like this and looking at life the way I look at it, and having an experience like this happen in real time, and using myself as a kind of science project um, of experience, and just noticing that, like we're saying, like all of it comes down to the intense sensations and intense emotions, and that's what it ultimately it all is. It actually, I feel like, have all these thoughts about the story, you could say, the situation that's going on and what that means, and
Mhm.
what is this person doing now, and and like the fear going on around that, and the nostalgic, painful memories about the past. And but that when I'm sensitive, like in the way you were talking, when I'm sensitive with it in the way like the way you were talking about it, it's it has a sensation in the body.
Mhm.
Has
Yep.
it just has a feeling. It just comes down, which is continually fascinating to watch. That it comes down just to a sensation in the body. Like
Mhm.
that's the body's an incredible tool for this stuff. Like it's like a reference of like, oh, but how does this feel?
Yeah.
I can find that sensation and explore it.
Mhm.
And the story can be going on at the same time, and it can create more and more, elaborate, scary, shadowy images.
Mhm.
And it will still come down to a sensation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really fascinating.
And that's the value of what I'm talking about with the emotions, is the description you gave of like really being, which is ultimately in our heads when we're, what is that other person doing, and the memories and the,
Mhm.
frustration and the control thoughts, like all of that really is kind of disassociated. It's not here so much. But when you start to bring it back here in a way that feels, I don't know what the word is, holistic, maybe it feels real, like I really am feeling sadness. That's really what's happening. And I really can actually feel it. Wow. I can feel this. I can just be with this right now. Oh, now I'm feeling anger. Okay. I can kind of be with that. You know, if the more we were able to do that here, the less we feel like we have to go up into our mind into la la land to manage something we'll never be able to manage, and try to control something we're out that's not in our control, and we feel so out of control. There's a difference between feeling sort of helpless, meaning helpless becomes something like innocence and not even passivity. It's just realizing like I'm not in control of everything the way I think I am. That kind of helplessness has a sweetness to it, and um, you can really learn to just vibe with that. That's not the same thing as feeling like out of control, when you want to convince yourself you are in control, like up in your head, that's a really uncomfortable feeling. And it's uncomfortable for good reason, because it's not authentic. It's not fully authentic. It's
Yeah.
avoidance. It's avoidance of the experience of what's happening right here. And we can't control that other person, and we can't control what they're going to do, and we can't change the past by thinking about it, and we can't force the future by imagining it. We can't do any of that, and we really know we can't, right? But if we come to a place where we can actually address, hold, acknowledge, feel, and love the physical aspect of what's going on within us, then we don't feel so inclined to try to run away from it. We don't need to go up into that space.
This is really good what you're saying. This is actually just through recognizing what you're saying. There's so much of the suffering as being from the feeling of being out of control. And I notice in meditation, the feeling goes from out of control to the helplessness. And it kind of, so it's like it's allowed to just soften into helplessness
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
the okayness of the helplessness. And that just being like the river of life continues flowing kind of thing. And it's okay. It knows what it's doing. It's fine. Leave it be. Um, but the out of control feeling, the middle of the night, waking up, from a nightmare, like, people have breakups, I'm sure can relate to this. In the middle of the night, you might have a dream or a nightmare that you're back together, or you see the person with someone else, then you wake up and you go, "Oh, phew, it's okay."
Mm.
And then you're like, "Oh no, the nightmare is my reality." And then there's that feeling of I'm not in control of this situation. I need to do something to control this, but there's nothing you can do. Like, and then you realize there's nothing you can do, and then hopefully, if you've got some kind of wherewithal, some insight, you can then relax. And this is just going from my own experience. You can relax a little bit, like see that you can't do anything about it, feel into that.
Mm.
Um, Not trying to logically work it out, but just feeling into it. And it does turn into that flow of like just unfoldment, the
Mhm.
helplessness, the life is just doing itself feeling.
Yeah.
And it's very, I think it's a very profound change because that causes so much suffering, the feeling of being out of control. Feeling
Yep.
it's really convincing, like it's like a little itch. It's like there's definitely right in the back of my mind, like, there's definitely something I can do. Like just
Yeah.
itching away, even when it's so obvious there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah, and the experience of feeling out of control is implicit. What's implicit in it is that you could be in control. So it's a total lie. And that's why it's so damn uncomfortable, because you're, especially in situations like this, you're constantly shown evidence to the contrary that you could even be in control. And that's so frustrating, right? So it's never going to be a satisfied experience. It's inherently unsatisfying, you know. Um
Yeah.
and so it's like sometimes you just got to do it until you realize it's just ridiculous, and it's not going anywhere. But we can get so spun up in our head, and we can have so much will involved in it, that comes from deep emotional, you know, unmet needs or repression or whatever it is, that it can take us a while to really see that. Or you can just go down to the emotions, you know,
Yeah.
proactively.
Yeah. And you know, it's seeing that you can't do anything about it is kind of like you said, that really made me laugh when you said there's something that's so frustrating about that because it really, because like I say, it really feels like you can, you're like, and you can and you can't. So it's like you've got this lie mixed with truth, and it's like which you know, um, and what's interesting is the mind is it will be very convincing that not getting the person back, not controlling the situation, not, what it doesn't have to be about the person. It could be whatever situation someone's going through that they're listening to right now. But you don't get it back, that's as good as death. And you need to somehow get that. And that will be the thing that then will make you okay again. It will make you worthy as a person or make
Mhm.
you whole and complete. And this is where it kind of goes deeper. I feel this stuff. It goes deeper into like, I need the object, no matter how beautiful that object is, no matter how much, love that object has shown me. I need that. It's not necessarily an object is to put it down a little bit, but I need that thing. Otherwise, I don't exist. Otherwise, I'm not enough. Otherwise,
Ye I mean, I think it's right on the money that you called it object, because when we see somebody in terms of what they can do for us, right? This is a hard pill for anyone to swallow, but it's especially when you haven't really looked deeply into like your motivations in relationships. When we look at somebody from the standpoint of how they make us feel, how they can make us feel, what they've already done for us, what they could do for us, we're not seeing them, and they know it. They become an object in our own mind. Objects only exist in the mind, by the way. You already, through all your non-duality explorations, that's already clear. But how do we use objects? We use objects by overlying them on actual people or external experiences. Um, and so, yeah, it's exactly what we're doing. We're objectifying somebody ultimately when we really just see them for what they could do for us, or what we want from them, or what we think we need from them. you
yeah.
know and I'm not saying that there are no, like, in close connections and emotional connections and relationships, there are no, mutual needs being met, and all. I mean, there's relative truth to all of that. But if that's literally how we perceive that person, we perceive them through the lens of what they are doing for us, how they make us feel, we're not seeing them. We're not seeing their life. We're not seeing that person and their struggles and their all the whole spectrum of what they are and what's important to them, and loving them and supporting them as an outward movement. It's very much
Mhm.
inward. It's like, what can I get from them? I love this quote by Nisargadatta. Someone said I say it too fast and it sounds like I'm saying it wrong. Nisargadatta. He said, "In my world, love is the only law. I don't ask for it, I give it." And that's
Mm.
a pretty radical way to live in a way. But the more I've oriented my life that way, the more it really works. It works in relationships, close relationships. It works in very casual situations and settings, and it just works to express what feels most natural, most loving, and most authentic to me in life. And so, as an attunement, that can be very powerful. And again, it can be a hard pill to swallow for us. We may be selfless in other areas of our life, and then we find this place where we're like kind of selfish in a certain sense. I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm saying this is a very universal thing that people will have to look at some point
Sure.
if they're going to evolve in relationship or just in spirituality or whatever, to see, like, am I looking at that person through a lens of what I want from them, what I need from them, what they do for me, how they make me feel? Okay, if I am, or to the degree I am, I'm like not seeing them. I'm seeing my unmet needs as a child pasted in front of my
Oh,
face.
yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's called them. And then I'm blaming them for not giving me meeting those needs. Like, they don't even know. How
Yeah.
could they even know? It's, and so it's like we're in a struggle with our internal experience, and we think it's an external experience. And that's why it really helps to bring it home, to learn to parent yourself, to learn to come into contact with your own emotions, take responsibility, feel them, accept all these parts of ourselves. And then the outside stuff tends to take care of itself. You just see more clearly. You see people more clearly. You see relationship more clearly. Um,
That's beautiful, that what you're saying there. It's, 'cause I feel we do on the human level, we definitely are grabbing onto other people for, like, safety and support and, what can I get? Even if we really do love that person, I think
mhm,
we are, you know, uh, just firsthand, I have to be honest about this. Like, I thought I had this idea of myself as you could say, a spiritual person, and that I could be a lone wolf of some kind, meditating in the middle of a forest and living alone and having that kind of lifestyle. And, you know, uh, that was with my partner there. And their partner was always there.
mm,
So I kind
yeah.
of was living that life a little bit, and there was that safety of the partner being there. But when the person goes, it becomes very, very obvious very quickly, uh, like what's going on inside me. Like, how much am I actually depending on this person for my feeling of safety, my
Mhm,
security? Like, how much am I depending on this person for my feeling of self-worth? Um, how much, am I just for love and the feeling of that I'm okay? And
yeah.
now it's like it is a gift. It is ultimately a gift, a very, very bitter pill to swallow, like you said, but it's a gift. but now I have to find that, quote unquote, within myself. Um, and this is what anyone who has a breakup or someone dies, I guess, will have to go through. You have to then find that thing that you're putting onto that person.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's like that's an outward. It will just be what that is found is not something that's selfish and not something that grabs from others. It's something that is like an outgoing flow,
Hmm.
and doesn't want anything from anyone else.
Yeah.
Uh,
And at the same time, it doesn't necessarily want or need anything, right? Or you don't necessarily want or need anything. But at the same time, there's a genuine appreciation for that person, like for what they offered you and what they offer the world, and really
yes.
see that and acknowledge it, and then you do acknowledge that, yeah, it does add to your sense of stability in life and all that, and that's all just relative honesty, like we need stability to survive. Like, you if you don't have shelter, you don't have a lot of stability. If you don't have safety, you don't have a lot of stability. Emotional connection is an aspect of that as well, of course. And so again, it's like I think the first step is really just seeing what is it we're we're unreasonably expecting from that other person and falling into mental traps about it, uh, and and knowing that about ourselves, and really just seeing clearly, like, what am I really giving? How much am I giving? How much am I taking here? Or am I actually seeing that person? But the beauty of it is you don't really have to sort all of that out. It sorts itself out when you really just come back and take responsibility, but also take the responsibility of realizing you actually do have the capacity to self-soothe. You do have the capacity to feel safe when you're not in an emotionally connected relationship. Like that kind of autonomy tremendously benefits any future relationships. It just does.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and you'll feel so much more settled in a relationship when you enter it knowing like you're okay. You can be okay alone, and they can too, of course. And together you'll be, maybe more than the sum total of your parts or whatever. If there's still a lot of unaddressed expectations or just unobserved expectations that you're going to put on another person, you've done it 2, 3, 4 times. Maybe for you as one person for years or whatever, but for some people, it's like they've done it 5 times in a row with 5 different people, and the result is always the same. Okay,
Mm.
maybe it's time to look here. Like
Yeah.
what am I expecting from a relationship or from that person, or what am I projecting onto them, or what am I blaming them for that they're not even doing, or all of that. And it comes back here, and it comes back to the emotion body essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it it's incredibly painful. But like you said earlier, it's literally like having all of your childhood stuff just like put right in front of your face. And
Mhm.
it's my feeling is we're not doing this to get something out of it. Like you don't stay with the emotions. This is where it gets really subtle. Like because my mind's even now knowing this, you can say, well, if you're a good boy, if you're a good spiritual practitioner or something, and you stay with this feeling of sadness right now, it will it will go away and maybe it'll turn into bliss or something great.
Mm.
Uh, that's it's that's not unconditional. That's not showing something unconditional
Yeah.
love, is it? That's the literal definition of conditional. Um, so it's being with it just to be with it,
Mhm.
just because it's there. And
Yeah.
yes,
And you'll realize why that is too, because what you're being with is that part of you that's very alive right now, that was 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, that felt really sad at one point when it realized that mom is my primary caretaker, but she can't always be here for me, or whatever it is. Like these
mm,
things are very, very intense emotional experiences for children. We don't even notice it most of the time or often. And then of course trauma built on top of that for some kids is like just makes it so much more difficult and intense. But children have very intense direct emotional experiences, but they don't fully process it. And because of conscious human consciousness, they reflect all the way into our adulthood. And then we play them out in all these strange ways that we don't even realize we're doing. But when
yes,
you hold that part of yourself, you feel it really starts to feel like love, like genuine, unconditional love for yourself. And from there, from that place, you know, things will work out. In relationships, things are going to work out. Even if they don't work out, it works out fine. And you just have a much better way of calibrating and gauging, who's who's doing what and what's going on and who's responsible for what and all that. It's just more clear. And the bottom line is, you take responsibility for your own emotion, you take responsibility for your own experience, and you take responsibility for any misperceptions you have about that person and what they should be doing for you or whatever. And when you take responsibility for all that, you actually have a sort of surplus awareness. You can see them for who they are, and they'll feel it. They'll know that you truly care about them genuinely as a human, and you care to uh, facilitate or help them grow in whatever way feels totally natural to them. And the unconditional aspect is, and that may even mean that they aren't with you, and that supporting that as well, because that's just the way they need to move in this life. And that's real unconditional love. Um, and yeah, some of the other emotions too, like you mentioned, jealousy.
Mm.
Jealousy is one of those ones that, like I said, anger feels really hot. Jealousy, when you first experience it, feels so hot. It's so intense, right? But it's also one of those emotions that's very transmutable. If you really just sit with it and just feel it as a pure emotion and not think about the storyline, right? Like, oh, they're with this person, they could be with me, and what are they doing? And trying to imagine what's going on, and like,
Mhm.
whatever. That's all mind. That's not the emotion. The emotion is down here, just going like, just feel that intensity, feel that rawness. If you can stay with that and stay out of the narratives, um, for me at least, jealousy was one of those ones that transmorphed, or I don't know how to say it. It's changed a lot. Changed is
Mm.
the better word. It changed to the point where it just didn't feel like a problem at all. It felt like a very natural feeling or experience, and I didn't act out on it at all. If anything, I would just relate to people like, whatever you really need to do in life, I'm not here to stop that. I'm not here to change that. So if you feel authentically inclined to do this, that, or whatever, that's fine. As long as we're in communication about it and we're honest about what's happening, and no one's like hiding things from one another to self sabotage or harm the relationship on purpose or something. That's a totally different story. But I can't tell you, like, I can't give you a list of rules of things you can do or who you can talk to or any of that stuff.
Mm.
Um, but I got to that clarity by just feeling the emotion. And all these emotions I talk about, I've sat with them a lot over the years. A
And that's
lot.
why you can
I
talk
still
about
I
it.
still I
Yeah,
still do, but they just get subtler and subtler and subtler. And often situations come up that in the past maybe would have caused jealousy, and they just don't at all. Or,
that's
it's like
fantastic.
just feel love instead.
Oh, that's that. I mean, that's absolutely what a place to be. That you get there by. I mean, it's interesting the way you put it makes me just think these emotions carry wisdom. They're like, it's like
Mhm.
that Rumi poem. They come from as like teachers from beyond or messengers from beyond. Um, you don't get to know that like where you are now with, when jealousy comes up, you don't get to be in relation to jealousy in that way without sitting with it and getting to know it. If every time it comes up, you go, "Oh, not this again. Where's the alcohol?" Or "I'm going to call the person to find out what they're doing," or whatever your mechanism of coping with that situation is. If you do that and just have the knee-jerk reaction, the jealousy never gets to transmit
Yeah,
its message. It by
absolutely.
sitting with it, it's like it ripens and it kind of then gets to, I don't know, gets to drop its sweet fruit
Yeah.
onto
Well,
you. Yes.
what you said was so good, and I've noticed this before. I don't know if I've ever verbalized it, but when so so let's say you're in a situation with a person, like you're in or whatever, where there's some emotional strife or challenge, and part of you wants to blame it on them or get the answer from changing some interaction with them, and then you stop and you go, "Wait a minute, let me just go in and feel what's here in the emotion body." Right? What I found over time was that by by really coming into communion with the emotions themselves, like really coming to contact, understanding their intelligence, which isn't a mental intelligence, it's a very visceral intelligence, and just getting to know them very well and experiencing them fully, um, and allowing them to be and to move and to teach and to open to other experiences and so forth. what I found is that the sort of sweetness of relationship that we crave, you can find it in that. You find it, and it's almost like archetypal energies, and they do drop fruit. But the surrender is the key with this. You can't do it to get something, because because what you think you're going to get out of it will be wrong. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. You have to really surrender to them,
Give me that sweet fruit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and be patient. You have to be patient. But
Yeah.
it's less, rather than fruit or giving you what you think you want, it's more like they open these kind of portals to energies that are very deeply wise, but they're also intimate. They're feeling type things, and they have that the things we look for in relationship with another person, sometimes like safety or security or validation or sweetness or being settled or peace or whatever we're looking for. We find like, oh wow, the actually I was looking for something that's been here the whole time. We know this because this is like a cliche, but the way it's been here, I didn't realize it was here, but I had to surrender to actually find it.
Mm.
And it's available always inwardly. It really is. And that's when you start to understand these old Zen masters who lived in huts and stuff. Like, they really they were in touch with, they might call it the great mother or something, the feminine aspect, or, you know, Guan Yin, the bodhisattva of compassion, but these are energies. These are like archetypal energies, and they're available to all of us, and they're available just looking around you. They're in nature. Like nature literally shows you what intimacy is, what it really is,
Mm.
you know, and
I love that.
that can't be severed.
I mean, that's the most important question. Like, can you find that, okay, so to speak, in yourself, that what that's you're craving from another person? Like, that's
Yeah.
what, in times like this that I find myself in, that's the key question really, is can this be found? This is where non-duality is. Like, am I full of shit, talking on this podcast all the time? You know, like, can it really be found? Because if I can't find it here, if I can't find it without the person that I'm been leaning on, then
Mhm.
it's not there. But so
Mm.
I really need to find it, and I can't say I found it to the depth that you found it, but I've got like the tip of my pinky is just like starting to
Mhm.
touch it, and wait,
Yeah.
there's something there. And it's not the route you want to take. It's
Yeah.
not like I will take such a high dose of mushrooms that I will transcend and I'll just be in bliss. It's no, will go through layers upon layers of wise old pains,
Mhm.
until you come into touch with them, and have a full relationship with them where you're not trying to push them away.
Yeah.
Uh, that's not the route we want, but
It's
it's
That's
yeah.
right on the money. Like you just touched on like the elements I wanted to mention for anyone who's following this is like, number one, um, you can find it in yourself, but you have to do the exploration. You can't just believe that, right? Of course. At this level, like it's very visceral. So you have to go there. So number one, yeah, do the investigation. Can you actually find that in yourself? That kind of peace that we want, that kind of equanimity we want, that kind of sweetness of life and intimacy that we want from another person. Can we actually find it here? And that's a very good exploration to take up, and it's very valuable. But the second thing you said, and it's right on the money, is it won't look like you think it will, though. If you're stuck in expectations, which are mental essentially, which are beliefs and based on, distorted past coping mechanisms that we learned from other people who have not the best coping, like all of that, right? That's not what it is, though. It's very direct. It's very much sensation. It's body sensation, acknowledging emotions, and then just really holding them, loving them. You have to find your own capacity to love. That's it. Like everyone has the capacity, but we doubt it because we
Mm,
think that
yeah.
person's the one that gives us love. You know,
Yes.
so
How do
that's it, and that's the way in, and just keep going and be patient. Be patient and trust that it's there. Trust that it's there, but keep investigating and surrendering.
It's almost, it almost taps into a kind of faith, doesn't it? Like you say, trust, it's almost like faith that it's there at times,
Yeah.
and it gives you the power to be patient. I
Mhm.
Because it is patience. You can't rush into this stuff. When you said, just something occurred to me when you said find the capacity to love that. What does, I guess it's very difficult to put that into words because it's something, it's obviously it's a feeling, it's something very direct and
What does love feel like to you?
into what does love feel like to me?
Yeah, right now.
It feels like um that's a very difficult question. um it feels like it's kind of it try not to go into my ideas of love. Feels like it's giving without wanting to receive anything.
Mm,
Feels like it feels like giving someone a cuddle and they need a cuddle. That's the imagery that's coming out, just like without needing anything in return. It's just a kind of
mhm,
a giving and warmth that going outwards. And
yeah.
like that's
Do
the
you feel
best
it
I
right now?
yes, yeah, I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah. It made me feel into it. And I'll be honest with you, Angela, like talking to you makes me feel a lot of love. Like
yeah.
I
Me
really
too.
enjoy this.
Yeah, for me, it
uh,
feels like this cool, like, as you were talking, I can just feel it, and I have love for this talk, this conversation, this connection, this honesty, this vulnerability and willingness to just talk about these things, that are so important to us and to everyone. But it feels like if I were to put a sensation to it, it feels like this very slow moving, cool, like physically cool, like breeze moving through everything. And it loves everything it touches. It just loves everything it touches.
mm,
It's an absolute recognition that everything it touches is completely okay. And if it had a voice, it would tell it, it's okay. It's okay. You're okay. Every part of you is okay. Every part of this is okay. You're made out of the love. The love is all there is. And that's how it feels. And that doesn't it's not just about a person. It's not based on my conditioning or your conditioning. It's just already there. And every human being has access to this. It's just a simple acknowledgement. It may feel really, really subtle at first. It may be really in the background, but to attune to love this way, talk about it, ask yourself about it, talk to your partner about it, talk to your friend about it, whatever. Ask yourself, what does love feel like right now? And you'll find it's there. It's actually there. But
mm.
don't worry about what you think it should look like or what the
No,
poetry said about it or what you felt with a person 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. What does it feel like right now,
yes,
And that if you
yeah,
can bring that into any of these inquiries we're talking about, any of them, the emotion stuff, the belief stuff, bring that in. It's one of the immeasurables in Buddhism, loving kindness, Uh, it's just absolute acceptance for everything that
yes.
is. And it comes with a love for experience. The fact that there can be experience at all is just so poignant and beautiful.
You could say, well, experience itself by its very nature is that love because
Mhm,
it is already it because I mean it's here, what's here is here and it's being experienced and that is that love.
mhm.
Um, so it's unconditionally accepting of what's here.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
so it's, and there's that, and then there's the knowing of that, like there's the actual realizing of that fact, and
Mhm,
there's a kind of partaking in the enjoyment of that
mhm.
fact.
Yeah,
It's like the human,
giving
it's
yourself
like
permission to
that's
enjoy it.
yeah, it's like the human isn't quite. I don't know. It is to make something into duality, but it's like the human isn't quite getting that fact a lot of the time. It's like it thinks it's a separate thing from the unconditionally loving experience and somehow
Mm,
cut out from it, and then it needs to grab something within experience. It's
mm,
I absolutely, obviously descriptions are never the thing, but I absolutely love your description. There's that, like you said, that cool, like a cool. It made me think of like a cool breeze that's just like a soft breath of God or something that's just kind of
mm,
touching everything, just without exception.
mhm.
And
And it doesn't judge it or label. It's not like it's determining what something is. It doesn't care what it is. It's just already love. And, you know, for anyone listening, the access point for this may be something that is personal to you. For instance, like I mentioned Guanyin, which is the Avalokitesvara, Guanyin, and Canon. Those are the three names for from Indian, Chinese, Japanese, and Zen for the Bodhisattva of compassion. And Guanyin is a female figure, and it means the one who hears the cries of the world. So for me, that's a very powerful attunement. But for someone else, it may be a different archetype, or it may be, the Virgin Mother. I don't know whatever. But like you may find something in your life that really resonates with you at the level of heart, and that can be your attunement to love. And you can kind of bring that into consciousness and then feel it, and then just find it. Is it actually here right now? Is it here? So everybody's path is different. Everybody's experience is different. Uh, there's a one taste to everything, and pure experience kind of has this like undifferentiated taste to it. It truly does. But paradoxically, everybody also has their own experience of things, their own past, their own history, their own emotional attunements. And so learn to trust yourself, learn to move with yourself, learn to find what it is that attunes you to love. It may be walking in nature, maybe the way
Mm.
you feel with animals or something. Um, so that's another thing too, is just to have an attunement, something that reminds you and then brings you back here to the feeling of it.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'll just say how much longer do you have, Angelo, just
I
before
got I got a bit longer.
Okay, cool. It just reminds me of, when you mentioned animals and nature, I just thought this is an interesting one to put in there, is, in the past, I was struggling with, like, guilt and shame. I remember speaking to my therapist, who's a very good therapist, about it, and she said, "Look, she knows how much I love my dog. I love my dog like it's my son," which
Oh,
having seen your videos, I'm sure you can relate to. Um, but she said, "When you look at your dog and you see the innocence there, you see the innocence, the absolute, just that, just love and innocence there, that's got to exist as you." For
mm,
you to be able to see that within the dog, you're seeing your own innocence. And given that how long I've been talking about non-duality and everything, it hadn't occurred to me that, when I'm looking at my little dog, I'm sitting there with all this guilt and stuff, and I'm just looking at him. He's just pure innocence. He's just innocence itself. It's like, well, he's the innocent one, and I'm, the guilty one. But it's like I couldn't perceive the innocence. That is my experience.
mm,
I'm not having the dog's experience. I'm viewing innocence. And it's not just an idea of innocence, it's I can feel the innocence, like,
mm,
I'm looking at, um, and that just makes me think about what you said about, how do you connect with these things? Like, going out into
yeah,
nature, looking at your most beloved pet or your partner or whoever it might be,
yeah,
you're connecting with something true there. It's not just the person, it's not just the thing, it's not that they contain that, it's just that they are some separate thing, that they own the rights to innocence, or whatever it is,
yeah,
you're connecting with it when you see it.
yeah,
It's just finding those, there's infinite doorways to this,
mhm,
as we always say in the podcast, but
yeah,
that's another doorway into connecting with that.
yeah. And I think sometimes we don't want to see, without realizing it, we have a block to seeing that kind of innocence in maybe an animal or something, because if we see it there, we have to see it in ourselves. And we want to be more complicated than that. We want to believe in duality. We want to believe that animal's over there and I'm separate from it. But the moment you taste that subject object, just not being there, and it's like you realize there's nothing more important about me than that animal's needs or that person's needs, or all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that the world looks so different. Um, it can be a huge relief, but it can also be a major readjustment. But yeah, you look at an animal and it's like that animal's not worried about anything, generally speaking. They're not worried about stuff. They're not thinking about the past or future, whether they're a good dog or a bad dog. They react to your energy and they react to the environment, of course, naturally through survival instincts. But generally, they're very empty and very present and very sweet and very innocent. And that's
Mm,
such a great attunement. Like to me, I love being around dogs and cats. I'm allergic to, but pretty much all animals. But physically, just being around dogs is such a blast because they are. a constant reminder that like all this stuff we get in our heads about probably doesn't really matter that much, you know? It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, how would the dog view this? That's always a good question. Like, what would Jesus do? Like, what would the dog do about this
Mhm.
situation? Would the dog even care? Does it even
Right.
matter to it? If it doesn't matter to a dog, then maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's not as
Yeah.
important as you thought it was. Uh,
Right. Well, yeah,
it's
that. We think a
yeah,
lot of things are very, very important, you know, that mm, eh, relatively sure, but they're gonna change. Everything changes, you know. Things come and go. People, everyone we know, everyone you know, everyone we all know is going to die. They're all gonna pass away. We're gonna pass away. Ashes
just
to
a
ashes,
daily
dust to
reminder.
dust in a very, very short time compared to how long humans have been around. Yesterday, I was looking at the distance to the closest galaxy, you know, and it's like 25,000 light years. The Canis Major, like big dog galaxy, I guess. I don't know. It's a small galaxy, but it's
Mm.
25,000 light years. And I was like going, so the light hitting us from that galaxy, 25,000 years, where were humans 25,000 years ago? And I was looking at it and like Homo sapiens have been around for like 100,000, 200, 300,000 years or something.
Mm.
So, I'm thinking back like all these iterations of all this time, and I'm like, compare that to like the 70 to 90 years we're going to be alive. It's a drop in the bucket. It's
Nothing,
just a
is
drop
it?
in the bucket, you know?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good daily
So,
reminder.
yeah,
Impermanence. Is a really it's an important teaching, isn't it? Like really, again, to bring it back to my own situation, because me, but it's it really is. There's this feeling like s- in this relationship, in this particular relationship I had, I was like, this is 100% certainty this will go on forever. Like this
mm,
will go on until one of us dies, of course. But it's like this can't be. This is an unstoppable force. This is
mm,
solid, concrete. Um, and this happens, and you're like, oh wow, okay. So things you don't. First of all, I don't have a clue what's going to happen next. No matter what my mind thinks, I have a zero idea what's going to happen in 1 millisecond from now. Like it
yeah,
doesn't. I didn't see it coming.
yeah,
um, and secondly, it's just it's always changing. Nothing's safe. Everything is flowing. It is literally a river of
mm,
experience. It's
yeah,
just constantly flowing.
mhm,
And it doesn't care what your mind thinks about it. It doesn't care how solid it thinks it is. It will just flow whichever
mm,
way the current happens to be going.
yeah,
Uh, and it's
yeah. And it can be daunting to the mind when we want to live based on ideas of how we think everything's going to go. But when we finally drop those and or just attune to the truth of that flow of existence that's just endlessly destroying itself and recreating out of nothingness, that that impermanence, say, to use a Buddhist term or whatever. But when you attune to that, it has its own kind of beauty. It's beautiful, actually. Um, it's endlessly letting go, endlessly letting go, endlessly letting go, and
mm,
it's also endlessly intimate and deep, and powerful and
mm,
luminous. All of that. But there's no substance to it. There's no, the mind does the weirdest things where it's like, oh yeah, it'll always be like this. Like nothing's always like anything, right? But we really, it's just that's why this always comes back to identity for me. We identify with that belief. That's what
mm.
hurts, to let go of the identity, which takes this full circle to something you mentioned very early on that I wanted to bring up. You mentioned existential terror.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just highlight this because I've talked to a few people about this recently. Um, Very deeply realized people actually will often get to this place where they start to feel this existential terror. And it's not the same as that, what I sometimes call the fear barrier right before an initial awakening. It's like this really intense body fear, and then it kind of goes away, and then you move beyond it, and then everything's very quiet in the mind, and something shifts often. This is different. This is very visceral. It's
Mhm.
deeper than visceral. It's deeper than the body. It's not an emotion. And it's a good sign, that this process is moving forward or regressing or whatever's happening. But it tends to happen, and it's can be quite unsettling. And there's no cure for it. There's no cure for it because it's not an emotion. it's something like the foundation of everything that you've ever experienced to be real, or yourself or the world or anything, is just crumbling. And it can happen in
Yeah.
concert with a relationship ending. It can happen totally randomly. But I wanted to say, when you mentioned it early, that probably isn't directly related to the relationship thing. It's just the timing of it. That's what I think about that. And if anyone ever comes in contact with this, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
it doesn't last forever. It doesn't last forever, but it can be it can be rather unsettling.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you're on the money with that. It's a relationship is like it kind of represents something which was already there. I felt this. This is not the first time I felt existential terror, and
Mhm.
it's happened after psychedelic trips. It's happened where I've done a lot of inquiry and stuff, and it just happens at certain times, and I'm like, oh God, if I continue with this, I have to accept that nothing is what I thought it was. And am I willing to continue? Am I, or could I just talk about non-duality from the safe place of like, yeah, let's look at experience. It's all about
Yeah.
like looking at experience, but everything's still here. It's fine. It's fine. I'm
Yeah. Right.
safe.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. This is where it's like this becomes really real. That like it's the dream is seen as a dream. It all just breaks
Mhm.
apart. Um, yeah, that is terrifying. It is
Yeah.
terrifying.
But it's
But
okay. It's good that
it's
you're
okay.
acknowledging it, and it's good that you're still orienting to letting this play out. It seems like you are, because this is a sticking point for some people. Like I know people who have been very deeply realized, have a lot of insight, and this turns them around. It really scares them,
That
such that
surprised me.
they just convince themselves it's not real, or I don't know. It almost puts them back in their mind in a way. What can I say about this? It's what you said. So we can unknowingly, to us, do this stuff where we learn. I mean, I meet people who have never had any kind of shift at all, and they believe the Buddhist doctrine of no self. And I'm like, I've actually come into contact with somebody once who was talking about that, and I didn't realize that they didn't really have any insight about it, and I really freaked them out. And I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to. I was just talking very directly about it. And I really learned something. Like, you can cognate a lot of this stuff. You can, believe, oh, there's no self, there's no world, there's just formless awareness. What you don't realize is the structure of self, which can feel very thin, you may not even notice it. You'll totally overlook it. Can experience all of that. It can
Yeah.
experience non-duality. It can experience formlessness. It won't do it continuously, but it can do it. Without even noticing, without itself noticing that it's still there, because it can't really notice it's still there. But something notices it, damn well notices it when it starts to crumble. And if you
Yeah.
feel that foundation shifting, and it's like the foundation of reality is shifting,
Yeah.
it's okay. And it does play out in a way that feels incredibly natural over time, but it can be an adjustment for sure. And it can be very unsettling when you start to feel that.
That is, well, I imagine I speak for others as well. Those few of us out there who are this particularly weird place of exploring reality to its depths of to getting to the point of existential terror. But for myself, that is incredibly helpful. It feels like you know, just metaphorically, it feels like you're on one side of a river and you're saying it's okay to cross. Come on, it's okay. And
Mhm.
like us guys are on the other. It's like it's okay. It won't sweep you away. You be okay. Uh, and this river is like it's like lava and daggers and when you look at it, it's like just made of all of your fear, all of your terror, and it's like
Yeah.
you're on the other side saying that's it's gonna be fine.
It
It's
doesn't
gonna
feel
be
like it's
fine.
going to be fine.
Yeah, yeah,
It fundamentally changes. It fundamentally changes something that is very hard to talk about. It's like the kind of thing you can't see until it happens. You can't. You feel it. You know it. You sense it. But until it really happens, it's very, very difficult to even know exactly what it is that's still there. And when it's gone, it's damn obvious. And it's in some sense it's anticlimactic, but in some sense it's like a black hole. Like, you can't not notice it. It's always there. It's always right there. Um, you may not talk about it because there's no need to talk about it, but you might at times, and you'll feel the effects of it. You'll see the effects of it reflected in other people a lot of times in what they say to you. But
yeah.
And I always can tell when it's happened for someone. Like when I interact with people who've gone through that, it's very obvious.
Well, on the other side of the
Yeah.
terror, you mean, where they've just
Mhm.
that's kind of like their final stop off before.
Yeah. When the self structure is
Yeah,
completely dismantled, it's pretty obvious.
yeah, yeah.
You
That's
don't
really
you don't like
interesting.
walk on water. You're not superhuman. You don't speak in riddles. I mean, it's not like that. It's you can still have misconceptions about things. You'll still have habits, but they tend to unwind up much faster after that, very
Mm.
spontaneously. But it's still an ongoing process, probably for the rest of your life. But interacting with that person feels quite different for me, at least.
Yeah, yeah. I can understand that. I can understand that. It just reminds me of I just quickly share this just for fun. It's a psychedelic experience I had with a friend taking 5-MeO DMT. We both took it, and when we both looked at each other, and I saw that he saw, he saw that I saw, and it makes me laugh even now. It was just so obvious. It was just
Mhm.
because it was on the other side where of the experience where it was still in the system, but we kind of were still very much in that black hole you were talking about. And it
Mhm.
was so immediately obvious.
Yeah.
We could see each other
Mm.
so clearly, and
I love it.
there's no words for it, is there? There's not. You can't say, "Oh, it was like sidekick or something." It was like, no, it was just obvious. It's like
Yeah.
to me, it felt like someone had untwisted a balloon animal, and it no longer had limbs, seemingly separate limbs or something, and it was just one
Yeah.
whole balloon.
Mm.
That's
That's a
I'm not
cool way
great.
of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It's
like, "Whoop."
awesome.
Oh, popped. Yeah, I'd imagine that's probably at the time, as far as, how much time we got
Yeah,
left.
probably, yeah, I
Yeah,
probably should roll.
yeah, you know, thank you so much for this, Angelo. Like, really, it's speaking personally, it's been very kind of you to offer your time and sort of help guide me through this. It's given me a feeling of strength to stick with the process as well. It's a kind of knowing that someone else has sat with these same feelings and that they have got this wisdom to them and they just want to be sat with.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people just need that. They need to hear someone go, it's like, this is what you're experiencing is okay, and this is normal for anyone who's engaging on this in this kind of exploration. Like, it is okay to be feeling these things. This will happen, and it will
Mm.
feel terrifying. It will feel like horrible at times. It will feel like the deepest fears and suffering will come to the surface, and it's all okay. And it's all,
Mhm.
that balloon animal is just that.
That's right.
The air is just like slowly coming out, and the limbs are kind of going back into one hole. Um, but yeah, so thank you for that. It's actually been incredibly helpful for me personally, and I do hope anyone else who listens to this, that it's helpful for them as well.
Yeah.
And
And it
yeah,
settles out. I mean, for anyone listening, we're talking about really intense times, and we all everyone's going to go through those in life. It just happens. We're going to lose someone. We're going to have a serious health crisis. It happens. These things happen. And we're talking about heavy stuff, but the whole process isn't also all super intense, heavy stuff. But there are periods where what we're talking about, you're going to know exactly what this is.
yeah, exactly. And then fortunately you've got videos like this and videos on your page, Angelo. Lots of videos with this kind of thing where it's just like literally guiding. It has been incredibly helpful for me personally, just knowing this is okay. It's okay. You're not going to die. You're fine. You're fine.
Mm, yeah.
Um, but yes, so thank you very much, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Um,
Been fun, man. Really, really was looking forward to it, and it was a great talk. Yeah. Thank you.
oh, thank you, sir.